Hello, Amit.
Hey, Andrew, you right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm thinking that we're going to have, like Howard Stern has Hey Now, like when he comes on, and other, people have a phrase that they have to say. We're going to have to try and think of that. I'm only thinking of that because I was listening to a podcast with the guys from Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey and what's the other guy called? David Spade. And they're interviewing people from Saturday Night Live, and they had on this week Mike Judge, who obviously, created Beavis and Butthead and created this, and just things that, sounds that are synonymous with things. So I think we need to work on that. Anyway, welcome to the, perhaps we could call it the rambling. Welcome to the Web3 Digest. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Obviously, we said that we wanted to try and get back in the swing of things. We had a big old dive into NFT New York, but I think we want to take a bit of a turn to something that is I'd say a softer landing in this Web3 space, and that is Metaverse.
Okay, cool.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Andrew. No, so yeah, look, I think we haven't touched on the Metaverse much in this series so far. So I think we need to kind of start to delve into this a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. That's very apt. Timing is right.
Yeah, and I think I guess just based on sort of media attention and focus and things like that.
Yeah.
NFTs are getting some love, but I think the Metaverse is still getting a little bit more love.
Yeah, I think that, there's a couple of factors associated to that. First and foremost, Facebook renaming themselves as Meta, and obviously the press that's generated around their focus in their Metaverse. Obviously Horizons, and we've spoken a bit about some of the Oculus and that there. I think that's obviously, made Metaverse more aware to people that perhaps aren't aware of it. And then here, like obviously you guys know, we're in Dubai. Last week and a half ago, there was a huge announcement whereby the Crown Prince essentially said that, he wants Dubai to be that kind of focal point for the Metaverse build. And in that sense, allocation of funds, but then also he was talking about 40,000 jobs in this space. And I think some of those, if not a lot of those 40,000 jobs at the moment, we may not even know what they are. So as much as augmented reality, virtual reality, these are not new technologies. I mean, the VR stuff has been around for 20, 25 years, but the exposure and the entry point, obviously, to this is now coming down. So we got asked to speak on kind of radio here and talk a bit about, well, what's the impact, what does it mean, and that goes down to that education piece again. So this is a radio show that's a daytime radio show, right? That kind of regular folk listen to, not business focused, not more lifestyle driven, and they wanted to explore. Well, tell us, what is the Metaverse? What is it out there? So I think that, and obviously a couple of months ago here, Dubai launching VARA, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, and launching that in Sandbox, right, which is definitely one of these popular metaverses.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of kind of movement and noise. I think that's happening, especially I think on that local level.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, look, I think I think we're fortunate to be here because Dubai is definitely positioning itself, as a kind of prominent leader within the space.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that even in some of the global communities that I'm a part of.
Yes.
We've seen that people, are really kind of looking at Dubai saying, oh, it's Dubai.
Yeah, exactly.
They've really kind of embraced this, and they kind of, really want to lead from the front.
Totally.
Which is pretty cool and inspiring.
Yeah,
I think,
totally.
It definitely helps. I think I guess on a local level here, how do you see it playing out though? Is it somewhere that brands should be focusing their attention, or is this just maybe the government because they want to tick boxes?
I think that I think what's interesting is at a brand level, I think there's sectors and there's industries at the moment that are leaning into it harder than others, right?
Okay.
So if you look at the kind of fashion industry, they've really fully embraced that. Thinking back to South by Southwest. Most of the Metaverse talks that we went to were where brands that actively embraced Metaverse have been in fashion. So Ralph Lauren in kind of Roblox, You know, you've got Gucci and Louis Vuitton, all these guys in Decentraland, in fashion districts. There's actually a fashion district in Decentraland where people can kind of go in and have their digital twinning and stuff like this, you know, physical asset, digital asset. So I think that when we looked at it, there was definitely a spark there. But I think what's interesting specifically about this part of the world, and we saw this, and it made me think about the time that you spoke at South by we're talking about Instagram.
Yeah.
And there's no rule book. So what happens here is because there's no rule book, everyone just believes, well, I'll jump in on it, right? So, you know, I have had in the last 2 weeks with recruitment companies about Metaverse, agricultural companies, government bodies that monitor agricultural and farmers, all on Metaverse.
Okay.
Frozen food company, right? Tinned goods company. So as much as globally, industry is fashion, and I've had 3 fashion talks as well. Is fashion. Everyone is now almost seeing Metaverse, and I liken it to social media, Facebook, Metaverse specifically. It's like, you know, okay, I've heard about Facebook. What can I do?
Yeah.
Right.
So those conversations 15 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. Now it's Metaverse. I've heard about the Metaverse. Don't understand it.
Yeah.
First and foremost, don't understand what it is. What is it? And then obviously the follow on from that is, you know, what can I do in it? Yeah. Right. So I think because of the exposure that it's got in the local press and because of the international heat on the back of it, and obviously Meta and all the things with Facebook and everything, I think all of that is and in all honesty, people can grasp it within usually a couple of sentences, right? So whereas some of the other things in Web3, if we jump into blockchain or DeFi or NFTs, you do need to think about it and you have to kind of work through some of the processes. Metaverse, I don't even have to tell you, wear this and then talk to me once you've jumped around in VR chat, you know, or you've played, you know, what do you call it? The Saber game, you know, so like, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but it's
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's still a lot to navigate, right?
So it's huge. Yeah.
I think if we do go back to those Facebook days, feels Facebook, right? And right now, I mean, how many? What's that number?
166.
Right, 166 different metaverses that
are currently out there in like public space.
Right.
But I mean, I've had conversations with 2 in the last 2 weeks I didn't know existed. Right. I had no clue.
No, because
they're huge.
And exactly. And there's a bunch of private metaverses.
There's a bunch of private metaverses. You know, you and I went to a session there in South by with a guy from Dell. So one of the other metaverse conversations I had last week was with a company for sales and sales training. So we want to pull people together in a metaverse to train them because we've got them all over the Middle East, right? How do we do that? You know, how do we have a sales event in the metaverse instead of having a Zoom call and it's all boring and you're sitting there? So I think the thing is, you're right. The difference was 15 years ago that it was Facebook, right? But the metaverse isn't a company, right? It's a technology. You know, so it's like somebody rocking up to you 15 years ago and going, tell me about social media. It wasn't. The conversation 15 years ago, you're right, was tell me about Facebook and how I can use it.
And I think that's the key
differentiator. Yeah, exactly.
And you know, because it is very different. And I think there's a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Web 2 is social, Web 3 is kind of metaverse and stuff. Well, no, actually, metaverse on its own is just so big and so diverse.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I think there's kind of application there for a lot of different businesses or industries.
Yeah.
But finding that right application and then being able to execute on it, I think is going to be that challenge. I think.
Yeah.
And there's some brands that are doing some really good stuff in there already. I think you mentioned a few.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is again, you know, we will be living in this kind of virtual space.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of activity that's going on in that virtual space because it makes a lot of sense for, you know, business and transactions and stuff like that. So yeah, perhaps it makes sense for companies or brands and within different industries to start to explore this. But I think even real estate are really kind of interested in this. Right?
Yeah, real estate. Yeah, real estate are kind of, you know, looking at how they can embrace the metaverse and what they can do, you know, in that world. I think what you said there, which is crucial, is that, you know, you have to look at now, like our kids even, you know, have grown up in this space, right? Roblox and things like that. It's not unusual for them to operate in a digital environment and own digital assets. So, you know, there's a desire and a want to do that, you know, in your adult life, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's important. That's the difference. And look, I'll be honest with you, even something as simplistic as, you know, a workroom's virtual reality meeting versus a Zoom meeting is vastly different, right? You know, the ability to have your avatar and look and talk to each other and see micro, you know, emotions and kind of things like this, it's big. It does allow a different type of connection.
Yeah. But the thing is, and again, some of those metaverses that we've seen, which are some of the private ones, are even really simple, right?
Totally.
Where they're saying, actually, you don't even need your avatar.
No.
Stick a photo of yourself.
That's it. Yeah.
You can move around the room.
Yep.
You can still get the spatial audio. You can still, you know, network with people. You still engage with, you know, a screen and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's just finding. I think right now you know, I think what brands need to figure out is, okay, if they do want to be on, you know, in the metaverse, firstly, which metaverse is the right kind of metaverse for them? How do they then get their audience in there, and how do they kind of really kind of engage their audience when they're in there? And then measuring some level of outcome. I mean, if we go back again to Facebook in the early days, you know, the question was, okay, well, what are we going to get out of this, right? People were jumping in it, but there was no real measure of outcome.
No.
You know, that all kind of happened afterwards when Facebook kind of needed to, you know, justify their valuation.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But again, we're not talking about a single entity. So
no.
Yeah, it's a really kind of fascinating space, but one I think which is just going to, you know, exponentially grow. And I think on the back of a local government here, I think Dubai's got a real opportunity to kind of lead the way with this.
Yeah, I think also as well, I mean, and to show you how powerful potentially this is, I spoke about this on the radio, that, you know, there was a job advertisement for a tour guide for a particular place in the metaverse. I mean, that's a real job, right? Which seems insane. But anytime you've got an environment that is fueling the economy, that's fueling jobs, that's fueling growth, lean back to education, you know, what do I need to study to understand how to do that? I mean, these, you know, that's the massive impact, right? So I think when we talk about this Web3 shift and change, you know, it is revolutionary, right? In that sense, and kind of, you know, making huge inroads. I think the thing is as well, you know, when people say, oh, I want to be in the metaverse, you know, I want to kind of explore the metaverse, there is, you know, that kind of that base understanding that they do think it's a thing, right? You know, and that's a problem. It's technology, right? So it's not a thing. I can't pick it up and then walk around with it, right? You know, it's not that. So I think what's interesting about that as well is that. But yeah, I mean, so most of the conversations that we've had over the last couple of weeks have been around, okay, I want to be in it. What is it? How does it work? You know, and I think also one of the things that's quite interesting is, from a price perspective, it's hugely varied, right? So there's some things, you know, out of the box straight away, you know, that you can jump into, you know, that we can jump on and start to explore and start to experience. You know, you know, it is relatively low cost for people to experience it. It's obviously when you're trying to build out the individualized personal services brand experiences, that's when you kind of need that skill set and that expertise to pull in. But every single conversation I've had around Metaverse, the follow-up to all of the conversations I've had is like, go and have a look, jump in it, experience it yourself, understand it. Because I think that's another thing. You need to, you know, kind of jump in, back to, you know, the reluctancy early on of people jumping in on social. That's not for me. I don't want to get, but you need to understand it. You need to have a look at it.
Yeah, 100% right. Cool.
Good stuff. All right, then, look, guys, we're trying to pinch these at that kind of 15 minutes. So appreciate you listening, appreciate you watching. Kind of looking forward to the next show. So yeah, we'll catch you then. Thanks, Amit.
Thanks, Andrew.